Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Normally I do this on Thursday evenings, but because I had to help my family with something, I'm doing this tonight. And Gravy, I am going to throw you under a bus. For someone who claims to not need book learning, want does not have an apostrophe. Just FYI. But welcome, everyone. See Trey, Anthony, Phil, Jaluk, Citizen Ronan, and Mike Hill. Yeah. Again, welcome, everyone. So, got the last two chapters of the Two Towers, chapters 9 and 10 for this evening, and I will repeat this at the end of the stream that I'm going to be taking next week off from reading and then returning in September to read scary stories leading up to Halloween, beginning with the Hellbound Heart. So, taking a break from Lord of the Rings. I'll be returning to Lord of the Rings in November with Return of the King, but for the next 2 months, roughly, I will be reading series stories beginning with The Hellbound Heart, written by Clive Barker, and is the book Hellraiser is an adaptation of. So without further ado, let's just jump right into this. So chapter 9, Shelob's Lair. Alright, if you've not seen the movies or read the book, or I should say movie, not read the book, yeah, you'll find out what Shelob is. Alright. It may indeed have been daytime now, as Gollum said, but the hobbits could see little difference, unless perhaps the heavy sky above was less utterly black, more like a great roof of smoke, while instead of the darkness of deep night, which lingered still in cracks and holes, a grey blurring shadow shrouded the stony world about them. They passed on, Gollum in front and the hobbits now side by side, up the long ravine between the piers and columns of torn and weathered rock, standing like huge unshapen statues on the other hand. There was no sound. Some way ahead, a mile or so perhaps, was a great grey wall, a last huge upthrusting mass of mountain stone. Darker it loomed, and steadily it rose as they approached, until it towered high above them, shutting out the view of all that lay beyond. Deep shadow lay before its feet. Sam sniffed the air. "Oh, that smell," he said. "It's getting stronger and stronger." Presently they were under the shadow, and there in the midst of it they saw the opening of a cave.
"This is the way in," said Gollum softly. "This is the entrance to the tunnel."
He did not speak its name. Cirith Ungol, Shelob's lair. Out of it came a stench, not the sickly odor of decay in the meads of Morgul, but a foul reek, as if filth unnameable were piled and hoarded in the dark within. "Is this the only way, Smeagol?" asked Frodo.
Yes, he answered. "Yes, we must go this way now."
"Do you mean to say you've been through this hole?" said Sam. "Phew, but perhaps you don't mind bad smells." Gollum's eyes glinted.
"He doesn't know what we mind, does he, precious? No, he doesn't. But Smeagol can bear things. Yes, he's been through. Oh, yes, right through. It's the only way."
"And what makes the smell, I wonder?" said Sam. "It's like, well, I wouldn't like to say, some beastly hole of the orcs, I'll warrant, with 100 years of their filth in it." "Well," said Frodo, "orcs or no, if it's the only way, we must take it." Drawing a deep breath, they passed inside. In a few steps they were in utter and impenetrable dark. Not since the lightless passages of Moria had Frodo or Sam known such darkness, and if possible here it was deeper and denser. There were airs moving, and echoes, and the sense of space. Here the air was still, stagnant, heavy, and sound filled dead. They walked as it were in a black vapor, wrought of veritable darkness itself that, as it was breathed, brought blindness not only to the eyes but to the mind, so that even the memory of colors and the forms of any light faded out of thought. Night always had been, and always would be, and night was all. But for a while they could still feel, and indeed the senses of their feet and fingers at first seemed sharpened almost painfully. The walls felt, to their surprise, smooth, and the floor, save for a step now and again, was straight and even, going ever up at the same stiff slope. The tunnel was high and wide, so wide that, though the hobbits walked abreast, only touching the side walls with their outstretched hands, they were separated, cut off alone in the darkness. Gollum had gone in first, and seemed to be only a few steps ahead. While they were still able to give heed to such things, they could hear his breath, hissing and gasping just in front of them. But after a time, their senses became duller. Both touch and hearing seemed to grow numb. and they kept on, groping, walking, on and on, mainly by the force of the will with which they had entered, will to go through and desire to come at last to the high gates beyond. Before they had gone very far, perhaps, but time and distance soon passed out of his reckoning. Sam on the right, feeling the wall, was aware that there was an opening at the side. For a moment he caught a faint breath of some air less heavy, and then they passed it by. There's more than one passage here, he whispered with an effort. It seemed hard to make his breath give any sound. It's as orc-like a place as ever there could be. After that, first he on the right, and then Frodo on the left, passed 3 or 4 such openings, some wider, some smaller, but there was as yet no doubt of the main way, for it was straight, and did not turn, and still went steadily up. But how long was it? How much more of this would they still have to endure, or could they endure? The breathlessness of the air was growing as they climbed, and now they seemed often in the blind dark to sense some resistance thicker than the foul air. As they thrust forward, they felt things brush against their heads, or against their hands, long tentacles or hanging growths, perhaps. They could not tell what they were. And still the stench grew. It grew until it almost seemed to them that smell was the only clear sense left to them, and that was far their torment. That was for their torment. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. How many had they passed in this lightless hole? Hours, days, weeks, rather? Sam left the tunnel aside and shrank towards Frodo, and their hands met and clasped, and so together they still went on. At length, Frodo, groping along the left-hand wall, came suddenly to a void. Almost he fell sideways into the emptiness. Here was some opening in the rock far wider than any they had yet passed, and out of it came a reek so foul, and a sense of lurking malice so intense, that Frodo reeled. And at that moment Sam too lurched and fell forwards. Fighting off both the sickness and the fear, Frodo gripped Sam's hand. Up, he said in a hoarse breath, without a voice. It all comes from here, the stench and the peril. Now for it, quick! Calling up his remaining strength and resolution, he dragged Sam to his feet and forced his own limbs to move. Sam stumbled beside him. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, at last 6 steps. Maybe they had passed the dreadful unseen opening, but whether that was so or not, suddenly it was easier to move, as if some hostile will for the moment had released them. They struggled on, still hand in hand. But almost at once they came to a new difficulty. The tunnel forked, or so it seemed, and in the dark they could not tell which was the wider way, or which kept nearer to the straight. Which should they take, the left or the right? They knew of nothing to guide them, and yet false choice would almost certainly be fatal. Which way has Gollum gone? Panted Sam, and why didn't he wait? Smeagol, said Frodo, trying to call. Smeagol! But his voice croaked, and the name fell dead almost as it left his lips. There was no answer, not an echo, not even a tremor of the air. He's really gone this time, I fancy, muttered Sam. I guess this is just exactly where he meant to bring us. Gollum, if I ever lay hands on you again, you'll be sorry for it. Presently, groping and fumbling in the dark,